Hello and welcome to Lockdown Economy Nepal, a local edition of a social non-profit initiative to help small businesses and self-employed professionals overcome the challenges of the pandemic. In Nepal, it is being done in collaboration with NYEF Kathmandu Chapter, a membership-based non-profit organization dedicated to create outstanding entrepreneurs, and AlterContacts, a global think tank for sustainable development based in Amsterdam. My name is Suzan Lal Manandar, host of the TV series, and I'd like to welcome everyone who joined us for this session. Today, my guest is Aayusha Shrestha, who is the founder and designer of Aamo. Hello, Aayusha ji. How are you?
Hello, Sujanji. Thank you so much for having me on board.
Welcome to the interview series. And today, we're going to talk about the reality of your organization as it was during the lockdown. And we had a chat about this yesterday as well. And the situation at your organization was different than what I've heard from other organizations. So I can't wait to get into the lockdown economy discussion with you. But before that, Aayusha ji, please introduce us to Aamo.
Yes, sure. So I started Aamo in 2005 as almost like an experimental, brand. However, I went live with the brand in 2016 only. So at Aamo, we work with home-based artisans. Almost all of them are traditionally trained, which means their skill sets have been passed down from father to son. So it's generationally passed down. And we still use the same tools that has been passed down for almost 400 or 500 years. So we're just adapting and adopting and, really trying to integrate the artisans in the contemporary art and design scenario right now. Primarily, we focus on jewelry making because most of my artisans work with metal. However, we've also started incorporating people who work with ceramic, wood, paper, anything that is to do with any traditional skill set that is available in Nepal, really.
And Aayusha ji, where are you based?
We're actually based in Kathmandu.
Perfect. And who would you say are your major clients?
I would like to say everybody, but primarily our clients. When I started out, I have to be honest, I thought it would be people who were in their 20s to 30s who like to wear jewelry or any form of accessories as such. However, since the brand has launched, we've realized our clientele is very vast, and it's also a lot of people who really appreciate the form of the art and culture that we have locally. So anyone who does appreciate handmade goods and well-made with a story, with a narrative, so anybody who appreciates art and culture and design, I think they're my clients.
Great. And now let's talk about the lockdown. We went through a very strict lockdown in Nepal. There were a lot of travel restrictions, and you are working in an organization where there's a lot of artisans. They are displaced in different places. How difficult was it during the lockdown? What kind of problems did it bring in your organization?
Very honestly, I don't think we had as much problems as other organizations, because I work with home-based artisans. The fact that they could still stay at home and be producing was the biggest bonus for us. So as a designer, as a brand owner, my responsibility was to, see if I could keep providing them with work, and that is to design and to cater to that. So we did have some problems in terms of materials. At the same time, some raw materials we do have to import, but other than that, because we're recycling and upcycling our own wastage, brass, copper, so we had primarily very limited problems. So I think we didn't, and the other issue that we did have was, I think slowly and steadily as the lockdown kept getting extended, and people, I think a lot of people were very interested in buying our products. But as a brand, we were very conscious to completely we actually closed down our store much before the government even announced the lockdown because we wanted to be very cautious. So I think our biggest problem was clients wanting our products and us saying, we're in lockdown, we can't deliver the goods. But they were very patient. So I think we primarily two major problem was one for the fact that we had little issues with the raw materials access. The other was we couldn't cater to our clients.
And definitely, having a lot of orders is one problem you probably want to have, right? But now let's talk about something that was a major issue during the lockdown for a lot of organizations, and not just organizations, but in people's personal lives as well, and that is mental health. Because a lot of people were restricted from living their day-to-day life, interacting with people they would usually interact with. And when all of a sudden that gets cut off, there's some sort of adjustment that needs to happen. And people can have problem adjusting to that. So how did this become an issue in your organization, and how did you resolve that?
Most definitely, mental health was a big issue. When the lockdown initially started, because we were connected virtually, and I have been training and working with the artisans, and we're on the phone or even laptops a lot of the times, we've been communicating virtually. But however, and I personally felt my job was to keep them slightly occupied so they could focus on just working and not be, very drawn down because of what was happening around. But after a few months, I think all of us did go through that phase where mental health became a big issue, and especially with the artisans. Even though they are home-based, they're very used to being very interactive within the community. Most artisans might be neighbors, they had the liberty of talking, sharing information, or just sitting and having a cup of tea. So when all of that did get stopped, I did realize a lot of my artisans, it's honestly, I'm glad and I'm fortunate that I'm quite close to them, and they were very open about how they were feeling. And a lot of them started saying, we don't feel like working, we can't sleep, we don't want to eat. So I did realize these, these signs and symptoms and how they were interacting with me more. I realized it's taking a toll on them too. So then we just decided to have a group virtually, and we would, share silly videos or just keep each other entertained too. So then I said, okay, we could stop working, almost take it like a break. And so we would just interact with each other. Sometimes we would be up till 2, 3 in the morning, just chatting, because a lot of them would lose sleep. So I think mental health is something that we, as any organization, really need to focus on, because eventually if their capacity to actually work or even understand what emotions they aren't going through aren't a priority, then we lose out. So I think that's how we eventually, we just started to talk and just share. Just, I would send silly like dog or cat videos. A lot of them had pets, which was a good thing. So just connecting on the human level became very, very important. So I think that's how we try to slowly overcome, and for some people it took much longer. So we were in touch almost every day, and some of them unfortunately did lose family members. So it took a bigger toll. And I think the fact that the information, of what the virus actually does or can do and what's happening, so lack of that also was creating a little bit of fear in them. So just putting out the correct information also became very crucial on our side. So I think that's how we slowly coped with it.
Thank you so much for talking about this during in this interview, because the situation in Nepal back then when we were in the first lockdown, it was as if if you stepped outside your house, then you'd contact Corona, or all the news would be negative, would be about people losing their lives, people losing their jobs, and that can have serious mental toll. And I'm so happy that you talked about mental health in this interview, so that we can spread an awareness about that as well. Now let's move on to the strategies you adopted. You talked about having a few issues earlier on in this interview. What kind of strategies did you adopt to solve them?
I think the strategy that we did adopt was just requesting our clients to be patient, because we were very grateful. And like you said, having orders is a good issue. So, and I have to admit that internationally too, a lot of people who are Nepalese who are based outside, and international clients, I think they did realize for a smaller business to sustain, they need to place orders, or they wanted to support us. So we started getting a lot of those orders, and we kept saying that, okay, till the government does not allow us to function or work in the government rules and regulations, we will not be doing any sort of business. So our strategy was really to be in touch with our clientele and ask them and request them to be very patient with us. So that worked out quite well for us. We kept getting orders, and we kept, putting them aside and saying, okay, as and when we can, we will ship them to you. But at the same time, the good thing was, because my artisans were still working, we were still taking orders. We could still take it. And I don't know if it's a strategy or it's, almost a negative point for a business. The other thing we very consciously decided was not to really post on social media, not to advertise our brand too much. We were very conscious of what was happening around the world, and the fact that, you know, we didn't want to be saying, oh, you should buy or you should shop. So, and I think that also came from the fact that we were quite secure. I was quite confident that I could, you know, all the people that we were working together, I could sustain them for a period of time. So that allowed us to be very secure and focus on rather my own artisans or the people I'm working with. And like you said, you know, like we discussed, their mental health, other than just focusing on the business aspect. So I think our strategy was to like close down the business on the outskirts or on the exterior, but interior we were like, you know, really working internally for the business to grow, and we were having plans as to how to strategize after the pandemic is probably over or once the government allows us to work.
That's great. And yesterday we had also spoken about something else, and that is about the costs in your organization. Because even if the store is closed or the organization is not running, there's a few costs that you still have to incur. And you talked about having a safety fund for that. Could you please elaborate on that?
Most definitely. So when I started the business, it was actually right after the earthquake. So I was very conscious about the fact that, you know, anything could happen. And as a business owner, I have to look into the security of the people who are working with me. So right from day one, it was very natural for me to put aside the Artisans Trust Fund. That's where from all our sales, we keep up to 20% of our profit into that fund. So what we could do and what we have done in the past too is, in case somebody needs emergency fund, it can be for health, education, we actually tap into that and then give access to the artisans. So the artisans are also quite aware that we have this fund, and they felt quite secure and they did trust me and the brand itself, you know. So what we do is, during the pandemic too, when the pandemic started, we addressed the issue that we will not be selling, but we will still continue to work. So because of this fund, I was quite sure that, you know, not only did we sustain the artisans who were working with us, there were a lot more. I think we started working with around 12 different families and family members who lost their job during the pandemic. So we actually could hire more people to work with us. So I think having a fund aside, and, you know, it's almost like a security blanket. So we used, and we're still actually tapping onto the fund right now too, because the stores were closed and we're only now selling. So I think it's very crucial to have a sort of a security, you know, where we can and are responsible for the people who we're working with.
Definitely. And as you said, you know, this is COVID is a major hit to the Nepalese society and the Nepalese economy in a very short period of time, because we went through the earthquake in 2015 and also the blockade, and it really highlights the importance of having this safety fund that you can fall back on in situations like this. And I'm really happy that you brought that point as well. But now let's talk about your competitors. How did the industry react to the lockdown?
I feel like there were more brands that were coming up, which I was very excited about, like even in terms of jewelry or anything to do with handmade. I think the lockdown gave a lot of people the time and the, you know, idea to actually do something homegrown rather than rely on imports or export or any form of external, you know, help. So I think I did see like at least 6 to 7 different jewelry brands just popping up on social media too. And they were all, you know, doing handmade and fantastic designs. So I think the lockdown actually, even for us, we had to slow down. We had to, you know, reorganize, reprioritize on what is more important to us. So I think that allowed other people or other entrepreneurs or business owners to do the same. So I think it's good that the lockdown, in a sense, had a slightly positive impact on the youth. At least as far as I know, the brand owners are very young people who've started. So it's good to see a lot of homegrown brands that have come out of the pandemic.
Definitely. And, you know, it is about realizing an opportunity in a situation like this, where there can be, you know, we talk about when you start a business, we talk about identifying problems, identifying gaps. And I think there were a lot of those gaps during the lockdown. And I think, like, as you said, a lot of young entrepreneurs have been able to identify that and act on it during this pandemic period. But now let's talk about the post-pandemic period, which we are in right now. The lockdown has been eased in Nepal. The vaccines have entered Nepal as well. How is your organization performing in this situation?
So right now, we're sustaining for sure. However, we will have to, push now throughout the pandemic. Like I said, we've been very quiet and not really trying to push sales. But I think now we'll have to buckle up, because now we've hired more people and we're collaborating and working with more artisans. So thankfully, right after lockdown, also, like I said, because we had a lot of orders, we're still fulfilling those orders actually. So that has helped us to, we're now looking over and we're getting like profit now slowly. But I think I would not want to, the growth for the company or post-pandemic too, because the situation still isn't absolutely 100% stable. So we're still cautious. We still try and, let people or our clients know that at the store we can take only 1 or 2 people at a time. So I think it's personally speaking too, and for the business too, I would like to take like smaller steps rather than just push and then just focus on sales, because I think the artisans that I work with, and because I'm very close to them, I'm quite conscious of how we grow, and I wouldn't just want to push sales and then not have to deliver. So I think I'm still taking it very cautiously and very slowly. That's how I would like to say we're growing slowly and steadily.
I 100% agree with you on that, because, like you said, a lot of things are still uncertain. And I mentioned the vaccines earlier, but we still have to see how effective it is and how fast we can distribute it to the population. And with that in mind, where would you see Aamo in the next 3 months?
3 months, next 3 months, actually, we're quite excited. Because like I said, we're collaborating with more people, more artists and more artisans. So we have a lot of new products that's actually coming out. So next 3 months, I see us, maybe growing more internally than externally. We might not be as visible on the market. However, internally, we're putting in more work so we can, and the game plan is actually for the next 1 year. So we're trying to come up with products that are more sustainable, more useful, more something that you could probably carry on for your life, not just things that you could just use and keep away. So the whole idea for the next 3 months is to actually do more research, incorporate more Nepali ideas, research more, now that we can move around a little bit more, connect with people and artisans, designers, artists who are thinking of a sustainable way of living life itself, So I think in the next 3 months, we will be pushing a little bit on sales, as well as coming out with products that are more meaningful to our clients. I think that's our 3 months goal.
I can't wait to see what Aamo comes up with the next 3 months. And this has been a wonderful conversation. And I only have one more question left for you. What are the 3 things in your business that you need help with?
I would admit and say marketing for sure. Because as a brand, like I said, we've been quite conscious of how we put our products out, because we want people to have a proper understanding. We just don't want to do sponsored ads and, be in everybody's feed, but people not understand what our product is about. So we're trying to look and work with people, like-minded people who understand our product or what we're trying to create and the service that we're trying to give. And the second thing would be, again, like-minded people who we can work with, collaborate with, who understand the essence of our brand, the Aamo, what we stand for, how we want to grow slowly but steadily, and how we want to respect the people that we're working with, along with their skill sets. And I think third would be, at this stage, even though we're quite comfortable with our in-house sales and, we're sustaining, but I think now getting funding so we can incorporate more ideas and hire even more people who really, had it hard during the pandemic. So they, like I said, there are a lot of artisans who are relying on export, and now they have lesser work. So really trying to build together, almost like a family, come together as a community and try and hire more people who are in need. So I think funding right now would also be a great option for us, because I know we can incorporate and bring in more women and men to work with us. So I think these 3 things.
Those are some very important points you mentioned there, and I feel like I repeat myself every time during these interviews because I love it when the guests come on and to talk about collaboration. And it's truly a time for entrepreneurs to collaborate. One of the objectives of doing these interviews is to get a discussion going on between entrepreneurs and see where they can help each other out. And collaboration is very essential at this point in time. And thank you again, Aayusha ji, for coming on this interview series and sharing your insights. This has been an absolute pleasure. Before we sign off, would you like to say anything to our audience?
I think I would honestly like to say just stay safe, be conscious, just respect each other's space and also support handmade goods and, locally grown brands for sure. I think that's about it.
Thank you for that wonderful message, Aayusha ji, and thank you again for coming on this interview series. And thank you to everyone who joined us for this session. If you have any questions for Aayusha ji, you can find her contact in the description, or you can leave a comment in this video. I invite you to like this video, share with your friends, and follow our page, the NYF Kathmandu chapter Facebook page. A recording of this video will be present in the AlterContacts YouTube channel, so please subscribe to our channel. There are playlists of videos where entrepreneurs and small business owners from different parts of the world have shared us their insights. We'll have more interviews coming in next week. Stay tuned, and goodbye.